Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We will resume with our discussion. Well, instead of continuing with our debate, I will just be discussing the lessons by myself so that we can finish it quickly. Okay, so we are done with the discussion of the nature versus nurture concept. As I repeat, nature talks about the hereditary aspect of the characteristics or traits of a child. So anything that a child has genetically inherited from the parents. Those are nature, meaning innate. Okay. While nurture believes that some of the traits or characteristics of a child are molded or created based on the surrounding environment, the external aspect of a child. Okay. Again, nature, uh, a degree to which human behavior is determined by genetics or biology. And then nature is learned through the interaction with the environment. So during our debate, there was a discussion which plays a bigger role in the development of a child. Is it nature or nurture? And then I have concluded it by saying that there is a need for an interaction between nature and nurture, because one of you mentioned that it doesn't matter if a child is genetically intelligent. If that is not nurtured by the surrounding environment, then it will not be developed further when the child grows up. Okay. And when we say continuity versus discontinuity, we are talking about in continuity, that a certain attribute of a child is developed when the child is still young and continues to happen in the lifetime of a child. But in this continuity, it believes in stages, that a certain trait or characteristic exists only per stages. Okay, so that's continuity versus discontinuity. And then in changes, we have here stability versus change. So for stability versus change, it describes the developmental psychology discussion about whether personality traits that are present in an individual at birth remains constant or changed throughout the lifespan. So the example given is that is a naturally extroverted and talkative baby remain that way for their entire life? It depends upon the situation, because if a child is naturally extroverted, like um, there are high chances that it will be retained until the child grows up, or there are also instances where it will be eradicated or removed, depending on the situation that the child is exposed to. Okay, so the stability versus change debate is one of the fundamental questions in development psychology, along with nature versus nurture. Because if a child is innately extrovert, like, oh, a child is innately extroverted because the parents of the child are also extroverted, like social people, that could be on the nature aspect, but will it be retained until the child grows up? Depende na yan sa nurture aspect. If ang surrounding ng bata is yung mga nakakasama niya ay kagaya niya, naturally extroverted, then there is a higher chance that that will be retained throughout the entire life of the child. Pero if the child is exposed to an environment where the people are not really as talkative as the child is, then there is a possibility that the naturally extroverted aspect will not be retained as the child grows up. Okay, so those are the issues on human development: nature versus nurture, continuity versus discontinuity, and stability versus change. Okay, so do you have questions? If you don't have questions, kindly click the thumbs up button so I can proceed with our next lesson. Isa pa lang. Okay, thank you. Now let's proceed to another topic, research. I will not be dwelling much on this because this is already covered in your MR, your third year ka, di ba? Methods of research, or even when you were in senior high school. So, of course, as teachers in the future, it is very important to conduct researches to identify the problems in the classroom, inside the classroom setting, and what are the solutions that you can do in order to solve these problems. And we go through that aspect, we go through that process through research. Okay, the conduct of research does not only belong to thesis and dissertation writers. Even informal or simple researches are very important to identify the problem and, of course, provide solutions for the problems. As teachers, that's very important. That's why um, not only are you should be good at identifying methodologies of teaching, but you're also supposed to be good at research. Okay, because research is not only for the student, but for scientists and researchers, but also for teachers and students as well. So there are this we have here the scientific method. I think you are very familiar with this when we were still in high school, basic science. You ask a question first, you do background research, you construct a hypothesis, then you test your hypothesis, you analyze your data, and then you report your results or your conclusion. So one important principle in research is adherence to the scientific method, since research is a systematic and it follows processes, kumbaga, systematic. It has a process that should be followed. That's already a common knowledge for every one of us inside here. So researches that are done with high level of quality and integrity provide us with valuable information about child and adolescent development. Again, in some aspects, you might encounter a lot of problems inside the classroom because your students have varied personalities, have varied strengths, have varied weaknesses, have varied interests and hobbies, and research is going to help you gather data, maybe through observation ba, observe mo ano ba yung common na traits nila, ano ba yung common nila na weaknesses, ano ba yung common nila na interests. Then you can use it to solve your problem. Okay? That's research for you. So we have data gathering techniques can be observation. Ang pinaka-common inside a classroom setting, if informal lang naman yung gagawin mo is we have either observation, kagaya you have to observe what are the traits that are very common to the students, their interests and all that. Interview, you can do focused group discussion, you can ask questions to your students. Which do you prefer to do when we are having a lesson? Do you prefer to talk? Do you prefer to sing? Do you prefer to dance, etc., etc.? Pwede rin questionnaire, survey questionnaire, and then aside survey questionnaire or interview guide questionnaire, then you can also have the database. So, for example, titingnan mo yung mga grado ng mga estudyante. Oh my God, mababa sila sa English nila. So, let's see kung anong pwede natin gawin kasi mababa sila sa language nila. O mataas sila sa mathematics, ibig sabihin magaling sila sa numbers. Medyo mahina lang sila sa language. Ganun. So, those can be methods of data collection. Okay? Of course, there are ethical principles that should be followed when it comes to conducting research. First is that you should not harm anyone in the conduct of the research. The data must be gathered with consent. Okay, you ask permission from the students first. Make sure that they have consented with the gathering of the data. We also have to protect the respondents or the participants. They have to be anonymous and the information should be confidential. Okay, hindi pwede na i-share lang. Oy, kabalagod ka, nakita na ko ang grado ni kaning nga estudyante, ang grado dahil sa English is 75. Okay? That's not good. That's not ethical, kumbaga. You have to also avoid deceptive practices. I have noticed this last year nung nag-check ako ng thesis ng mga fourth year students. May mga estudyante talaga na very deceptive, no, when it comes to the conduct of the research kasi gusto nilang matapos na kasi pagod na sila. Let's avoid that, okay? And next is providing the right to withdraw. Sa tingin mo ba this is a dead end? Hindi na pa pwedeng ma-pursue further than that? Then it's right. It's only right to withdraw, okay? So those are ethical principles. Now, research itself has proven that teachers have everything to gain and nothing to lose when they get involved in the research process. It's very important for you to conduct research, formal man or informal, kasi nga it helps you identify what are the problems and what is the solution to these problems. That's the impact of the teacher's research or the involvement of teachers in the field of research. Okay? Kasi nga, huwag kayong maniwala kay Cynthia Villar kasi sabi nga ni Cynthia Villar, research kayo na research. Ano ba yung research? Research plays a very important role in our life. We will not have this comfortable life. We will not have cell phones. We will not have chairs, tables, air conditioner, light without research because research identifies our problems and identifies our problems, gives solution to our problems, and of course makes our life convenient. Okay, it makes your life convenient as a teacher because it helps you identify solutions to the problems that you encounter inside the class. Okay, so that is research and development. So we're done with our module 1. Are you may mga questions ba when it comes to issues on human development and the involvement of teachers in research? Wala naman. Kung walang question, raise natin ang click the thumbs up button. Yes, yes. Miss Cabel, may question ba?
Wala, ma'am. Wala.
Okay. Bakit hindi lang thumbs up ng iba? Andyan pa ba kayo? Okay. Okay, thank you. This is recorded, by the way, so I am going to post this later sa inyong Open LMS. Also, I will be including YouTube videos of, that are related to the lesson so that you can have supplementary videos that you can lean on to when it comes to learning the lessons. Kasi I just have a heads up lang, guys, ha. Ang exam ninyo ay lahat sila ay higher order thinking skill, meaning it doesn't matter kahit na i-open niyo pa lahat ng module niyo, i-open niyo pa lahat ng link niyo, ang kailangan sa exam ninyo ay understanding. Pag hindi niyo naintindihan yung binabasa ninyo, hindi kayo makakasagot ng tama sa exam ninyo. Okay? I don't care. I don't care if you open all the links that you can inside during the conduct of the exam. Kung hindi niyo naintindihan yung binabasa niyo, hindi pa rin kayo makakasagot. Okay? So I'm going to supply you with YouTube videos discussing the lesson and make sure that you understand and familiarize all the concepts so that it won't be difficult for you to answer the question. Kasi ang exam niyo ay LET-based. Licensure, ang question is naka-anchor kung paano magbigay ng question during licensure examination for teachers. So sa licensure examination for teachers, hindi tayo puro recalling lang, remembering lang. Like, what do you call, who is the proponent for psychosexual stages of human development? Who is the principal author of ito? Hindi ganyan, remembering lang yan. We go to situations, applying the lesson in situations, especially inside the classroom. So it's better that you understand the lesson, not remember all of it. Okay? So now we will proceed with module 2. That is, saan na yan? Ito. Let's discuss Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory. So marami tayong aspects na pupuntahan sa module 2. We have Piaget, cognitive. We have Erik Erikson. We have Bronfenbrenner. And then we have Vygotsky. Okay? So we will be discussing these proponents and how are the theories created or proposed by these experts explain or elaborate human development. And we will start in a psychoanalytic and psychosexual aspect, which was proposed by Sigmund Freud. Okay. So can you see the slide on the screen, guys? Kindly answer po. Ano nakikita niyo sa screen? Ano na nakikita?
Yes, ma'am.
Unit 2,
Yes, ma'am.
module 5.
Okay, okay. Thank you. So we are going to discuss about Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory. So in Sigmund Freud, there are two concepts that will be discussed. It is the psychosexual stages of human development, and then we have the three important aspects of id, ego, and superego. So I hope that you have read all of this kasi I've seen na may mga 8 students na nakapag-submit ng main task 1 and main task 2 nila for module 2. So I hope you've read some of the information about this. Okay? So Freud's view about human development are more than a century old, 100 years old. He can be considered the most well-known psychologist because of his very interesting theory about the unconscious and also about sexual development. Because Freud's theory remains to be one of the most influential in psychology because it explains it, how would you call this? It accurately explains our human development and how this affects us when we grow up. Okay, his theory sparked the ideas in the brilliant minds of other theorists and thus became the starting point. He became the standard ng mga other subtopics that are related to a psychoanalytic and psychosexual development of a person. Okay, so ito si Freud. He was born on May 6, 1856 and died on September 23, 1939, and he founded psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is the studying how we act, our characteristics, our traits, and how it helps us develop when we grow up. He's Australian, by the way. So Freud is the most popular, Freud is the most popular psychologist to study the development of personality. And of course, he had developed 5 distinct stages of psychosexual development. We have anal, oral, latent, phallic, and genital. So we will explain. I will be explaining the differences between these 5 stages and what happens on these 5 stages. Okay. So before we proceed with that, let's discuss some important terms muna bago tayo mag-proceed sa 5 stages ng psychosexual development. So according to Freud, a person goes through the sequence of these 5 stages, and along the way, there are needs that should be met. Whether these needs are met or not determines whether the person will develop a healthy personality or not. Okay, there are instances when these desires or pleasures are not met that is going to significantly affect how we act or how we are in the future when we grow up. Okay, Freud identified specific erogenous zone for each stage of development. So kagaya ng na-mention ko, yung una oral, so meaning mouth, anal, then phallic, latency, and then genitals. So may mga erogenous zones for each stage of development. So erogenous zone or pleasure area become a focal point for the particular stage. Now, when we say pleasure area, it can be literal, it can also be metaphorical. It can be figurative rather. So when we say pleasure area, when the part where we experience desire, kumbaga, okay, that's the focal point for each of the particular stage. So fixation occurs when needs are not met along this area. I repeat, ang meaning ng fixation, very important to na term when we go over the erogenous zones or the stages. Fixation again occurs when the needs are not met along the area. So kung may mga needs or mga desire ka na hindi na undergo for each stage, it becomes a fixation. Ibig sabihin ng fixation, nag-stay sa imuha. Nag-stay sa imo ang characteristics kapag hindi mo na-meet. Okay? And I will be giving you an example later as we go on. As an adult, the person will now manifest behaviors related to this erogenous zone. And again, when we say erogenous zone, this is the pleasure area. This is it arouses or tends to arouse sexual desire. Desire is a term. Again, fixation, concept in human psychology that was originated by Sigmund Freud to denote the persistence of anachronistic sexual traits. The term subsequently came to denote object relationships with and attachments to people or things in general persisting from childhood into adult life. Again, if some pleasure areas, some desires are not met during childhood, it will persist until you grow up in your adult life. That's fixation. Okay? So proceed tayo sa first one. Oral stage. Oral stage is from birth to 18 months. That is oral stage. What can you see in the screen, guys? Confirm ko lang. Hello? Ano nakikita niyo sa screen?
Id, ego, super ego.
Ego, super ego.
At ayan. Ito, ano nakikita niyo sa screen?
Freud psychosexual
Freud's psychocritical evaluation.
So, ayan yung ating 5 psychosexual stages. Oral birth, and then we have anal stage, we have phallic stage, latent stage, and then genital stage. This is a much easier visualization or illustration of how we try to explain Freud's psychosexual stages. So again, oral stage happens from birth to 1 year to 1 year old, 1 years old. So the erogenous zone here is of course oral. So mouth. Ito yung erogenous zone sa oral stage. Sa anal stage naman, well, obviously, the erogenous zone is our bowel and bladder control. So I know right now you're feeling uncomfortable, like why are we discussing about, anus and our genitals? It's very important because may mga literal meaning din ito, and then meron ding mga psychoanalytic meaning. And we'll discuss that later. And then for phallic stage, 3 to 6 years old, the erogenous zone here is your genitals. Okay? And then in latent stage naman, from the word latent, ibig sabihin, yung libido ninyo, kung yung sa phallic stage, masyado kayo raging, kumbaga yung hormones, so 3 to 6 years old. Pagdating sa latent stage, medyo dormant na siya or inactive na siya in latent stage. That's the meaning of the word latent, dormant or inactive. And then in genital stage naman, this is from puberty to death. This is where our sexual interests are maturing. Okay? So yeah, proceed tayo sa oral stage. So oral stage, the erogenous zone is the mouth. So during this stage, the child is focused on oral pleasures such as sucking, thumb sucking, or breastfeeding. Kasi nga ang erogenous zone or yung kung saan yung pleasure area natin is yung mouth. So yun, okay? Meaning, too much or too little satisfaction can lead to, dalawa lang yan, oral receptive or oral aggressive. Oral receptive is kapag kulang yung pleasure natin, yung pag satisfy ng desire orally. So, ang nangyayari kapag orally receptive ka, you have stronger tendency to smoke, drink alcohol, or overeat. Kasi nga, nung bata ka, medyo kulang yung pag-pleasure natin sa ating mouth. So, ibig sabihin, you are more, paglaki mo, mas prone ka sa pagkain. Buka kasi nga, nakulangan ka nung bata ka eh. So, pagdating ng paglaki mo, pagtanda mo, you are prone to smoking, drinking alcohol, or overeating. Kapag ka naman aggressive, orally aggressive ka, then you have strong tendencies to bite your nails, use curse words, or even gossip. So in this case, karamihan sa atin ay mga orally aggressive, meaning napasobra tayo during this stage, di ba? So napasobra tayo sa sucking ng ating thumbs, or napasobra sa breastfeeding, napasobra sa, anything that we get in contact, di ba, nakikita natin ng bata tayo, birth to 18 months, kung ano yung nahahawakan natin, pasok sa bibig, that. Pag hindi yun na yun napipigilan ng parents, na kung bisag lang yung makita, yung mukhang ihungit, so orally aggressive ka. So you have now the tendency to sino ba sa inyo ang mahilig ng nails, mahilig mag-bite ng nails? Meron ba sa inyo?
Meron, ma'am.
Yan. Meron talaga yan. Ibig sabihin, orally aggressive ka, meaning napasobra ang pag-meet ng needs mo during the oral stage. Machismosa. Kita-kita, mga ako, chismosa, mahilig gumamit ng curse words. Ayan, mga orally aggressive. Kapag orally receptive naman, kulang. Sino sa inyo nag-smoke dito, nag-drink ng alcohol, or nag-overeat? So, ayan. Yan yung, first we talked about it in a literal sense, like okay, oral stage meaning oral, so ganun. Tapos kalagitnaan, when you grow up, may psychoanalytic interpretation na kapag ka na sobrang nakulangan, ito pala yung magiging effects sa iyo. Okay. So on the other hand, they may also fight these tendencies and become pessimistic and aggressive in relating with people. See, even just the manner of sucking or breastfeeding, it has an effect to you when you grow up. Either you become isolated with people, or you become aggressive with people. So in my case, I'm a very pessimistic person. Okay, I think negatively of other people, like, oh my god, nag-chat lagi siya sa kuan, ni siya kinahanglan ba, o lagi siya makita sa kunya ba ko, but so in that sense, itong ganitong ugali natin is meron pa siyang explanation kung bakit tayo nagkakaganito, and that is one of the explanation is this oral stage, if you are receptive or you are aggressive. Okay, next we have anal stage. So in anal stage happens, sino yung naka-on ng microphone? Paki-turn off po. Thank you. So during the anal stage, the child's focus of pleasure is the anus. The lobot, kumaga, okay? The child finds satisfaction in eliminating and retaining feces. In this case, kasi nga, when you are young, di ba, sometimes a child cannot control saan magbabawas, kailan magbabawas. So they find pleasure, kumaga, or satisfaction when they excrete feces, or yung dumi. Through society's expectations, particularly the parents, the child needs to work on toilet training. Of course, the child needs to learn when to eliminate their feces, where, saan, at kailan, ba? It is in this particular year or stage of the life of the child, that the child has to learn when and where to excrete feces. Okay? So, ayan. 1 year and a half of 3 years child's favorite word might be no. Ayan, mahilig yung mga bata sa no. Gusto mo nito? No. Kunin ko ito? No. Ayan. Gusto mo matulog? No. So, ayan. Kaya, very common thing yan siya. So, huwag kayong masyadong pessimistic when you encounter a child na, sobra kakiat, sige ra, og no, dili mo tuman, and all that, asa ra malibang, and all that, because that's a normal thing in their stage, okay? Therefore, a struggle might exist in the toilet training process when the child retains feces when asked to eliminate or may choose to defecate when asked to hold feces for some reason. So if you are used to letting a child hold on to the, hold on defecating, doing number two, it can also have an effect in the long run. Okay? In terms of personality fixation, so ayan, kapag ka either perminti ka ginapugan malibang pagbata or perminti ka ginapalibang rabi asa, may mga fixations din yan. During the stage in the pag anal retentive ka, anal retentive is pugngan kag maayo kung asa ka malibang. Dati ko gusto niyo malibang pero pugnan kasi yung magpapa. So anal retentive, there you have now an obsession with cleanliness, with perfection and with control, okay? Yun ang iyong may experience kapag pasagdaan ra kapag asa ka malibang, anal expulsive, where the person may become messy or disorganized. Okay? You see the difference? It has an effect on you. Pag halimbawa kasi ako nung bata ako, parati akong pinipigilan ko yung pag-defecate ko. Okay, kasi nahihiya ako or natatakot ako na magalit yung parents ko. So, anal retentive ako. So, I have obsession with, I'm a clean freak. Naiirit ako pag madumi yung paligid, pag madumi yung kwarto ko, madumi yung place ko. So, may anal retentiveness na nangyari. Pero kapag hinahayaan ka naman kung saan-saan ka mag-defecate, then you may become anal expulsive. So you tend to become messy, disorganized. Sino ba sa inyo dito mga messy, disorganized? Mga wala pakialam sa sa order. Be, tingnan natin, meron ba? Yo guys. Wala naman siguro na. Charot. Okay? Oh, sana. Hope so. Okay? So that's anal stage. And then we proceed with phallic stage. So phallic stage naman, ito yung somehow you might find questionable, like, is that true? But it is true according to Sigmund Freud. Okay, so from phallic stage, it happens from the ages 3 to 6. So the pleasure area or the erogenous zone in the phallic stage is your genitals. So it's not it's a common thing to see children ages 3 to 6 to hold on to their genitals kasi that's their pleasure zone. Okay, so during the preschool, di ba pag nakakita tayo ng mga preschoolers na, so, manyak ba ng bata na, sabi sige nagunit siyang kuan. No, we shouldn't react like that because that's a normal thing. Okay, during this stage, the preschoolers will sometimes become interested in what makes boys and girls different, and that is your genitals. Okay, preschoolers will sometimes be seen fondling their genitals. It's a normal thing, ha. Pag elementary teacher kayo, yung estudyante sige gunit sa iyang genitals, like girl, that's normal. Okay, Freud's studies led him to believe that this stage, the boys develop unconscious sexual desire for their mother and see their father as a rival for mother's affection. So it also worthy to note in phallic stages, aside from the fact that they're so fond of their genitals, we have these two complexes that are developed in phallic stage. We have Oedipus complex and Electra complex. Oedipus and Electra are both characters from Greek mythology. And if you have Greek mythology, next term, I guess, you will know about the stories of Oedipus and Electra. But I'm just going to give you a gist of what the story is about. So for Oedipus in the story is pinanganak siya, and then my oracle baga or prophecy about sa kanya, prince, di ba siya, yung mama at papa niya is king and queen. So may prophecy na lumabas na siya daw ang magiging dahilan kung bakit mamamatay ang papa niya or mamamatay ang papa niya. So syempre natakot yung mama at papa niya, so ang ginawa is parang Sleeping Beauty style, pinaalis siya sa kingdom, and then nung malaki na siya, bumalik siya, and then a lot of things happened and napatay niya yung papa niya, and then pinakasalan niya yung mama niya. Na hindi niya alam na mama niya pala yun. Okay, hindi niya rin alam na yung pinatay niya is papa niya pala. Ganyan yung sa Oedipus. So the idea is that when a child at this stage, 3 to 6 years old, you can see them be, especially pag boy, very attached sila sa mother nila, and hate na hate nila yung papa nila. They see their father as a rival or enemy for the mother's affection. In Electra's complex naman, this is a story about Electra. Si Electra naman is anak ni Agamemnon at saka nakalimutan ko pa ng mama niya. Basta ang nangyari is, si Agamemnon ito yung papa, went into war, tapos yung mama ni Electra is nagkaroon ng kabit. Tapos, nagplano yung mama niya at yung kabit niya na patayin si Agamemnon pag bumalik na siya sa Greece. So, nalaman ni Electra yun. So, ang ginawa niya is nagplano rin siya para mapatay niya yung mama niya, para maiwasan, para hindi niya mapatay. Actually, napatay yung papa niya. And then parang to avenge her father's death, nagplano sila para mapatay niya yung mama niya. So, ganun yung ang essence. So, sa Electra naman, sa babae ito, kapag ang batang babae, a child, a female child is very attached to the father and hates the mother, parang ginagawa nilang rival yung mama nila sa affection ng papa nila. That's Electra complex. Okay, I repeat, Oedipus focus on boy-child. Okay, yun yung context yun. Oedipus complex. If a boy develops unconscious sexual desire for the mother, it's a normal thing, ha? Don't go like, oh, that's weird. That's normal thing. It's Oedipus complex if the boy develops an unconscious sexual desire for the mother and they consider their father as a rival. Kapag Electra naman, Electra is girls develop unconscious sexual desire for their father and they see their mother as a rival for the father's affection. But it only stays in this stage, ha? Kapag nag-proceed pa yan into a later stage, just go that, di niya normal. That's already the problem. Okay? So, ayan, explain ko na yan. According to Freud, in the phallic stage, the desire or libido of the children is centered upon the genitalia. While in this stage, children become aware of their genitals and gender differences, as well as the difference between male and females. So, Freud also stated that this awareness alters the parent-child relationship. Kasi nga, ang unang exposure ng bata sa opposite sex is yung parents nila. Like pag ako boy ako, bata akong lalaki, ang una kong babae na makikita is yung mama ko. So meaning, you see the difference between I see the difference between the both of us. Immediately, I develop unconscious sexual desire. Okay? During the phallic stage, the male child begins to desire his mother and sexually and treats the father as a rival. So, yung term na mama's boy, dyan galing yan sa Oedipus complex. Kapag ka-Electra naman, the female child develops unconscious sexual desire or sexual attraction towards their father and treat their mother as a rival or papa's girl. Ayan. According to Freud, boys eventually identify their father and develops masculine characteristics and repress their sexual feelings towards their mother. A fixation at this stage could result in sexual deviancies and weak or confused sexual identity. Freud mentioned this na parang fixation kumbaga, kaya ka pala naging bakla kasi you're so fixated with your mother. Might be true, but I beg to disagree with this because when we believe in this aspect na sobrang fixated mo kasi sa mama mo kaya ka naging bakla, then it means that there's something wrong with you, that you're abnormal. No, okay? Being a member of the LGBTQIA+ community is not an abnormality, okay? You're still a normal person. It's just that you are, deviant, kumbaga ba, sa kung ano yung nakasanayan nating normal. This is an attempt, by the way. This is Freud's attempt to explain why some people turn out to be gay or lesbian or transgender. But again, this is only a theory. Okay, in this part, I agree with all the other parts, pero in this part, nagiging fixation, yung pagiging confused sa sexual identity natin, I might have to question that a little bit more. Okay, and you should too. Okay. So now in latency stage tayo. Sa latency stage, this is from age 6 to puberty. So kung kanina, parang age na age yung bata, always holding the genitals, developing unconscious sexual desires to parents. Sa latency stage naman, meaning kasi ng word na latent is dormant or inactive. This stage is where you repress your sexual desires. The focus mo rito, the child's focus is the acquisition or the developing of skills or habits or making friends, playing with friends, going to school, developing skills. Yun yung sa latency stage. Acquisition of physical and academic skills. So instead of just, going down there, holding your penis or your vagina for everyone to see, in this case, you repress it and you try to focus your your self into the acquisition of physical and academic skills. You go to school, you meet friends, you learn a lot. So boys, in this case, yung kanina sa phallic stage natin is masyadong attached yung bata sa opposite sex. Pero when it comes to latency stage, you now identify with children that are of the same gender as you. Boys usually relate more with boys now in this stage, and then girls relate with girls with girls during the stage. Okay, I repeat, sa phallic stage, more attached ka sa sexual the opposite sex, but in latency stage, you now identify with the person that is the same gender as you as in latency stage. Then we have the last one, gentle stage. So the gentle stage goes on from puberty until you die. So this is the fifth and the last stage of psychosexual development, which begins at the start of puberty when sexual urges are once again awakened. So in this case, kanina sa phallic, very sexually, you are, di ko alam yung term kung saan hindi siya parang dirty pakinggan. Dito, kung kanina sa latency stage, you are repressing your sexual desires. Dito, turn on na naman siya, okay? The start of puberty when sexual urges are once again awakened, and earlier stages, adolescents focus on their sexual urges towards the opposite sex peers, with the pleasure centered on the genitals. Okay, again, I might have to disagree with this on Sigmund Freud, because he repeatedly mentioned that in genital stage, you are starting to be attracted daw with the opposite sex, heterosexual aspect, kumbaga. Pero that's not applicable for everyone, right? Kasi may mga homosexuals tayo attracted to the same gender. So doesn't mean that it's wrong or doesn't mean that it's not normal, okay? So ito na yung pagkaka-explain ni Freud sa genital stage. So in this case, na-awaken yung sexual urges ninyo.